Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way.
Hi, everyone. Well, things have certainly escalated fast between the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. It began on Tuesday when the US and Russia had their first bilateral talks on ending the Ukrainian conflict, and Zelenskyy complained why there was no Ukrainian present in the talks. The reason for that being, of course, that Trump is not interested in Ukrainian opinions on the matter. The complaint by Zelenskyy prompted Trump's tirade, saying that he was disappointed that the Ukrainian president was pissed off at being left outside the talks, carving his country up. He also seemed to blame Kyiv for Moscow's invasion, which, as of course every erudite scholar of geopolitics knows, blaming the occupied for the occupier's actions is exactly how you do this thing. And claiming Ukraine could have made a deal to avert the war, well, we know what deal Putin was offering, and that was basically the abandonment of their sovereignty as a country. Would you take that deal? And finally, he called for elections in Ukraine by stating, "That's not a Russian thing. That's something coming from me, from other countries." It's a Russian thing. We have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine. Yes, Donny, it's called an invasion. Where we have essentially martial law in Ukraine. Yes, Donny, it's called an invasion. I mean, I hate to say it, he doesn't. But he's down at 4% approval rating. No, he's not. Those are French numbers. And Zelensky's approval rating is actually higher than Trump's at 57%. And no, despite his frequent lies on the subject and demands for equalization, the EU has actually given more than the US in aid to Ukraine. Roughly 132 billion compared to the United States, 114 billion. So if you want equalization, pay more schmuck. Then, after this avalanche of bullshit came his way, Zelensky replied with this.
Якщо хтось хоче мене поміняти прямо зараз, то прямо зараз ніяк не вийде. Ну, тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі. І тому я би хотів, щоб було більше правди у команди Трампа.
As you can imagine, the Supreme McNugget did not take this lightly. He responded on Truth Social with, "Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing." He did not. He refuses to have elections. They're at war. Is very low in Ukrainian polls, higher than you. And the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Donald, the destroyer of countries. In the meantime, we are essentially negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump can do. Jeez, he's such a humble guy. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. Because I guess leading your country through 3 years of war and invasion, when hundreds of thousands of your compatriots have been wounded and killed, is probably being done, for the gravy. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered and millions have unnecessarily died. But he was not done yet with a follow-up post saying, think of it, a modestly successful comedian talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, never had to start, but a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent a gazillion dollars more than Europe, blah, blah, blah. So I guess someone's European diplomacy is going well. Responses by the rest of the world? Well, Putin called the talks with the US highly rated, but stressed that preparations are necessary before a meeting. Yeah, you're shit out of luck there. The Europeans have collectively lost their minds and so have upped their meetings and discussion schedule to an appropriately high level as per protocol. Macron, perhaps once again sensing the same opportunity he's been sensing since last time Trump was elected, has been convening meetings non-stop. He's even brought Canada in. The results of those meetings, Britain and France, the old frenemies, are leading efforts to create a European reassurance force intended to deter further Russian aggression on Ukrainian cities, ports, and critical infrastructure. The proposal could involve less than 30,000 troops, a far cry from Zelensky's request for 100 to 150k troops, and would likely be concentrated on air and maritime defense. Ground forces would be minimal and not deployed near the front line in the east. A precondition of the European plan, however, would also be a US commitment to a backstop, which, though not spelled out in detail, is likely, one official said, to be biased towards air power. Such operations could be based in Poland and Romania, they added. So, Macron and Kiir, the dynamic duo, are flying to Washington next week to lobby Don McNuggets to agree to provide that backstop. Meanwhile, Russia has publicly objected to any NATO country deploying in Ukraine if the war ends, calling the proposal unacceptable. They are, however, very happy to have finally found someone who also shits on Zelensky with the same gusto as them. Will the negotiations work out? Will there be a peace deal? Who knows? Trump seems more interested in the minerals than securing any even moderately approaching fair deal. And just because I've mentioned them, let's look at the map of Ukraine's rarest earth. Because, yes, we also have a minerals map. As the president of peace always says, give me your fucking minerals and you shall have peace. Oh, and I also want Gaza.